thing with Mario games is that you rarely get any middle ground with the boss fights, being that they either completely suck or end up being some of the most enjoyable parts of their respective games. For example, let's take a look at Super Mario 3D World. We have amazing boss fights like Meowser and the Bowsermobile, and on the other end of the spectrum we have Boom Boom. Admittedly, this is a very similar battle to those in 3D Land over in the 3DS, except that battle had a cramped arena, making up somewhat for its shortcomings. In fact, the only real problems that the Boom Boom fights on the 3DS were that they were a tad overused. I think fighting him 4 times throughout the game was a tad excessive. Like I said earlier, the size of the boss arena is the main reason why this boss is so pathetically easy. The large room lets you easily dodge Boom Boom's attacks, and that's not even mentioning the molasses slow speed at which he moves, meaning that you can dodge his attacks by simply walking in the opposite direction. The charge counterattack thing he does whenever you damage him is so easy to dodge it's not even funny. You don't even need to move, simply jumping in space is enough to avoid this stupidly pathetic excuse for an attack. Even the new and innovative twist on this battle, him turning invisible, doesn't do much to make him less of a complete pushover. This attack is so lazily telegraphed and predictable that you can see it coming from a mile away. Don't think that invisibility would add a certain element of challenge, because all Boom Boom does is the exact same charge attack when invisible, without any change in movement speed, meaning that as long as you keep moving, you'll be fine. In short, this battle is so easy I've fought regular enemies that put up more of a fight than Boom Boom does. Why Nintendo keeps on using this pathetic excuse for a boss fight, I'll never know. Giant robots. They make everything better. Except in Mad World. Isn't that right, Martin? I honestly thought that the Rank 2 Deathwatch competitor would be a much more enjoyable fight than it turned out to be. I mean, it's a battle against a grey alien piloting a giant killer robot. How could that not be awesome? Well, when you change the combat system out of nowhere for just one short fight, you can immediately start seeing the problems. Instead of cutting the boss to ribbons with your arm-mounted chainsaw like, oh I don't know, every other single enemy and boss fight in the game, the fight against Martin has you blast the crap out of him with a missile launcher. That in itself would be fine if Martin actually did anything aside from firing the occasional missile at you, forcing you into an incredibly annoying and repetitive power struggle, which is basically the motion control version of button mashing. What makes Martin even more annoying is that while he doesn't attack all that often if you keep blasting him with a constant barrage of missiles from the conveniently placed launchers, what attacks he will perform are pretty fast and hit pretty hard, and due to the small platform you have to attack Martin on, you have a fairly small space to maneuver in. Especially if he performs his arm sweep attack. Should he do this, and if you can't dodge it, he'll knock you off the platform and send you flying, forcing you to climb back up onto the platform while trying to avoid getting run over by him. Even the finisher of this fight is just as random and annoying as the rest of the fight. In my opinion, the finisher is some of the best parts of the boss battles. Getting the ability to dynamically tear the boss apart is just so satisfying, especially if it's a boss that is generally cheap and annoying, like Frank or the Shamans. Even the boss finishers for Release and Von Twirling Killer, which don't have any player input whatsoever, are fun to watch and give you that sense of satisfaction that the others do. However, Martin's finisher is neither satisfying or entertaining. Instead, it's just completely random. How is Martin killed? The robot spins out of control, crashes into a wall, and is crushed by a cardboard cutout that was used in the Bloodbath challenges. What? Well, I knew I'd have to talk about this one at some point. May I present the final boss of Prototype, the Supreme Hunter. Prototype's main problem is that certain enemies have way too much health and deal way too much damage, and the game's bosses are possibly the most aggravating examples of this. The Supreme Hunter is fought in an earlier boss fight, and that one was terrible too. Small arena, your most powerful weapons and attacks doing jack shit, and the Supreme Hunter is capable of killing you in seconds. When you finally defeat it, you think that's it, and you think that's the last you'll ever see of this monstrosity, but nope. The game throws a gigantic middle finger your way and forces you to fight this thing for a second time as the final boss of the game. And this time, it's even worse. Not only does the Supreme Hunter deploy a bunch of hard-hitting attacks, its attack and movement speed is greatly increased, and the battle is given a strict time limit, which means that simply spamming Whip Fist to deal chip damage is no longer an option, forcing you to get in close and hope that you can kill it before it kills you. Or at least that's a general idea, because the Supreme Hunter is capable of shrugging off your most powerful attacks like it's nothing and can tear through your shielded armor powers as if they were made of paper. Another annoying part of this fight is that the other soldiers attacking both you and the Supreme Hunter. I get that they're only there to allow you to consume to regenerate your health, but this creates a catch-22 problem. They can interrupt your combo attacks on the Supreme Hunter, and the Supreme Hunter can also interrupt you consuming some of the larger enemies, as the process of doing so leaves you wide open to attack. When either happens, it can be rather frustrating, and it only ever seems to happen when you're on low health or about to regenerate it completely, or whenever you're about to knock off a large chunk of the Supreme Hunter's health. In fact, the presence of these soldiers doesn't even make sense from a story and even from a logic standard. Why? You see that time limit? That's the time left until a nuclear device detonates. Why the hell would you stick around when you know that a nuke is going to go off in less than 5 minutes? If they were infected enemies, it would make sense, but nobody cares about logic in video game settings anyway, so I'll move on to the next entry. Majora's Mask. Possibly the quirkiest game in the Zelda franchise. Only 4 dungeons if you ignore the Moon Challenge dungeons and the various mini-dungeons. A great emphasis on side quests, and you only have a time limit of 3 in-game days to get everything done, with various events happening at specific points in the 3-day cycle. It's generally a pretty fun experience despite a few of its shortcomings, yet there is one massive blemish on the game's surface: the Great Bay Temple. While the Water Temple is generally the most reviled dungeon in the series, the Great Bay Temple is arguably even worse. What with the constant reversing of the current, the annoying Stray Fairies fetch quest, and a bunch of other reasons that I'll cover some other time. However, its boss fight is a different story. Just how do you pronounce that anyway? Georg, Georg, George? Weird name aside, this fish is quite possibly the most aggravating boss in the Zelda series. You're forced to hit it with either the bow or Zora Link's boomerang fins in order to stun it before you can wail on it with melee attacks, yet it moves so erratically that it's practically impossible to hit it with any ranged abilities, forcing you to get in close in order to damage it. To make matters worse, should you enter the water, Georg will spawn smaller fish by... oh, gross. These little fish act like seeker missiles and will attempt to crash into you while you try to attack Georg. Those things have messed up my attacks on more than one occasion, and it can be really annoying to lose that perfect shot due to one of those homing fish kamikazing you from behind. Then we have the remake. Most of the bosses in Majora's Mask 3D were given a huge change to how you fight them. I say most because the final boss is mostly unchanged. And Georg is no exception. Could somebody please tell Nintendo that the general idea of a remake is to fix what went wrong with the original game? Because in the 3DS remake, Georg is so much worse. This time, Georg has an eye inside his mouth which you have to hit in order to damage him. The eye can be really hard to hit seeing it's a relatively small target, and the only way to open up the eye for damage is to shoot Georg when he leaps out of the water. Once you've hit him enough times, he'll then destroy the platform you're standing on, forcing you to switch to Zora Link in order to keep on fighting him. In this phase, Georg gets a new attack, trying to inhale you. You have to force him to swallow the floating bombs in the arena in order to keep on damaging him. This wouldn't be a problem if the timing for doing so wasn't so finicky, and look, the Seeker missile fish are back. These things have an annoying habit of striking you when you least expect it, causing you to screw up your attack and get caught in Georg's vacuum attack, causing you to get sucked up and take a crap ton of damage in the process. Screw it, I'm gonna make this bitch watch to cover its babies in batter and make it watch as I devour them right in front of it. Why? When you have a game like God of War 3, which pits you against tons of Greek gods and titans, and a giant scorpion, a fight against an annoying cowardly wuss like Hermes doesn't really seem like that much of a good idea. Much the fight is you chasing down Hermes through an obstacle course, in a game where platforming isn't even the game's focus. Note to game developers, if your hack and slash game doesn't have a focus on aerial combat or isn't Devil May Cry, don't add in a jump button. This obstacle course wouldn't be too bad if it was somewhat manageable, except Kratos' jumping feels really stiff and this will most likely result in a few cheap deaths, forcing you to go back to an earlier point and try again, all the while listening to Hermes' taunts in that annoying and whiny little voice of his.
You may have brute force, but you lack speed. What makes you think you can ever catch me? So slow.
Oh no! Don't you dare bring that Sonic theme back. I'd rather have that thing be dead, forgotten, and buried 600 feet under. The worst thing about the fight is that every time you think you've managed to catch up to Hermes, he sprints away to another area, forcing you to go through yet another platforming segment with stiff jumping controls. When you finally catch up to this annoying little prick, you're expecting that the actual fight must be good to make up for the annoying chase sequence, right? Nope. This part of the fight only lasts about less than a minute, and you only hit Hermes 4 times and he's done. and he practically never attacks. All he does is merely dash back and forth around the arena, forcing you to chase him down yet again. However, this fight does have one rather redeeming quality, and that is the ending. Kratos brutally tears off Hermes' legs, leaving him to die from shock and blood loss in one of the most satisfying quick-time events ever programmed. Still doesn't change the fact that this is possibly the worst version of Hermes in modern media, but it at least helped to make up for it, if only slightly. Kingdom Hearts. While it does have a selection of amazing boss battles, there are a few fights that are on the other end of the spectrum, like, say, Genie Jafar. However, at least we can take refuge in the fact that this franchise will always have incredible final battles. In fact, I don't think I can think of a final boss in the Kingdom Hearts series that was, oh fuck no, why does young Xehanort suck so much? This fight does have some pretty impressive build-up going into it, and young Xehanort's actions throughout the game make you want to bash his skull in with your Keyblade, so you'll naturally have high hopes for this fight. I guess the main reason why this fight is so high is probably due to the fact that Kingdom Hearts had a spotless record when it came to final boss battles, so this probably stands out way more than it should. Young Xehanort hits like a truck and has the speed and agility of a jet plane, with combos that have an insane amount of hits and of insane reach thanks to the whip that extends to the end of his weapon. Due to his ridiculous attack speed and high damage, should you get caught in young Xehanort's combos, you're pretty much dead. While most final bosses in the Kingdom Hearts series do feature this, the main difference here is that young Xehanort's speed means that he's able to trap you in one combo, launch you flying, rush around behind you, and then immediately trap you in another. This naturally leaves you with relatively little chance to hit him, and when you do get to wail on him, he's capable of shrugging off the majority of attacks, and I swear to God that he doesn't even get stunned. Or, if he does, it's only for a fraction of a second. Add an insane amount of health, and this battle becomes more of a rage-inducing slog rather than a climactic final showdown. In all honesty, this battle doesn't seem all that different from the other entries on this list, so why is it so high? Simple. It's annoying as fuck gimmick. When young Xehanort's health drops to its very last sliver, he stops time and seals himself inside a clock, which you then have to destroy in order to deal the final blow. He pulls out all kinds of annoying tricks to stop you from destroying the clock, and all of his attacks in this phase are designed to either slow you down or knock you back. Why? If you don't destroy the clock in a specific time limit, he will reset the battle all the way back to the start, regenerating all his health and forcing you to do the entire thing again. Did I also mention that the strict time limit is not displayed on the screen at all? Metal Gear Solid 5. A game that excels in every aspect of gameplay. Except one. This may be a cop-out, but I honestly couldn't ignore this atrocity of a boss fight. Or boss fights. The skulls. The skulls are XOF's elite Black Ops unit that have been augmented by both the vocal cord parasites and the suits that they wear. I won't go into detail about that, seeing that this would require more words than my average university assignment, and that's a ton of words. They basically show up at various points throughout the game, and you will come to dread whenever they show up. Why? Because they are just so freaking annoying. Their armor grants them incredible durability, allowing them to tank whatever you can throw at them, including heavy machine gun fire, anti-material sniper rifles, and most explosive weapons. And this armor also grants them supernatural teleportation and cloaking powers, and insane jumping ability. Due to this, and the incredibly powerful weapons that they carry, they can overpower you and take you down with minimal effort, and seeing as they always attack in groups of 5 or more, this will happen way more often than you'd like. Making matters worse is that every time you fight them, the area gets blanketed in mist, which greatly limits your visibility, setting you up for all kinds of amateurs by the skulls. But by far the worst thing about the skulls is how often they show up. The developers could have easily designed more complex and diverse boss fights, but instead they chose the easy way out and just kept shoving the skulls down our throat like it's going out of fashion. Well, this is Konami, so I'm honestly not that surprised at that. Due to how often these guys show up throughout the game, and with all the previous points I mentioned, you'll end up getting sick of them after the third encounter or so. You'd think that they get easy to deal with once you start getting bad weapons and equipment, but the developers gave them so much health and firepower that they actually end up getting harder and more frustrating with each encounter. And it's not exactly that you can prepare for them, as the game just drops them on you without any prior warning. But by far, the worst of these encounters is the sniper skulls. This time, the skulls have high-powered sniper rifles in addition to all their other abilities, meaning they can now one-shot you from anywhere in the canyon where you fight them, while you can hardly track them or fight back. They also have knives to perform incredibly powerful one-shot melee attacks. because that's always fair. When I started development of this list, I originally intended this to be a list of the most disappointing boss battles I'd faced. I changed it due to running into a few more annoying boss battles and remembered a few more bad bosses that I didn't get to talk about last time. So a few entries are left over from what this list used to be. So basically what I'm trying to say is, if this number 1 entry is not the boss I hate the most, that only goes to the previous entry. This number 1 is actually the boss fight that I found to be the most disappointing and anticlimactic, which in my opinion is arguably even worse than being annoying. That boss fight is the Beast from Infamous 2. Oh good lord, talk about a major letdown. The series had been building up to a climactic showdown with the Beast from the ending of the previous game. You're told that the Beast will end up destroying the entire world, and Cole is the only person capable of taking him down. And you're told this by Kessler, who is a version of Cole from an alternate universe. Shh, spoilers. In the opening of the second game, you get a short confrontation with him, which ends badly for Cole and results in Empire City being completely eradicated. Throughout the rest of the game, he edges closer and closer to the city of New Marais, destroying everything in his path, and at one point even tanking a nuke. Naturally, the boss fight against this thing that is so powerful is only going to be incredibly awesome, right? Nope. While the fight does serve as a pretty climactic conclusion from a story standpoint, from a gameplay standpoint, the fight is pretty lackluster. For a start, the battle is insultingly easy. You can always see his attacks coming and it's not too hard to get out of the way. The Beast's size also works against him in this fight. While he does look intimidating, his colossal size makes his movements incredibly slow and sluggish, and this naturally makes him a gigantic target. In fact, when Quo shows up to battle you halfway through the fight, she actually puts up more of a battle than the supposed most powerful conduit to ever exist. You'd think that Quo's arrival would help add a bit more depth to the battle, but it actually makes the battle worse. Quo moves a heck of a lot faster than the Beast, and it seems as though she's only there to serve as a distraction. While you're focusing on Quo's rapid movement speed and attacks, you're not going to be paying all that much attention to the Beast. Hitting you with a powerful attack, most likely putting you at death's door. When you take down Quo and fight the Beast for the second round, it's even more boring than before. Considering how much he tanked early in the game, you'd think it'd take a pretty climactic showdown between these two titans to take him on. But all you do is more of the same as before, culminating in a boring as hell button mashing sequence where you charge the race sphere to sacrifice yourself to kill him. Admittedly, this battle isn't as bad as some of the others on the list, but the reason that this fight is number 1 is the amount of wasted potential that it has. The final confrontation with the Beast has been built up from the entirety of the game, was even hinted at and built up since the ending of the previous game. You'll generally be expecting something on par with the fight against Kessler from the last game, and to get this is just incredibly disappointing and kills any sense of satisfaction you could have gotten from this fight. I'm the Cyber Engineer, and here's hoping that the final boss in Infamous Second Son isn't completely terrible, now that I finally have the means to play it. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.